Hey everybody, it's time. It is Techno Saturday. How's everybody doing? Let's see who was first in the chat today. Ben Colts. Yeah, a little bit early today, starting at 12:30. We needed to have some extra time to go through these submissions. A lot of great submissions. Of course, Thomas from 343 Labs is hanging out on the 343 account. What's up, Silver Knobs? Kobayana 3000. Mark Crockett. Did I say Ben Colts already? I'll say it again. Happy Techno Saturday, Ben Colts. Manuel Gloda. Arsene Martinet. Am I getting that right? I always ask. Itzy is here. Lucas Noidling. See, yeah. My guest has given up. He's supposed to be quiet, but y'all know he's here. That's all right. You might as well just start talking, Kevin.
Hey, everybody.
It's all right. This is a casual thing. We're not on TV on a network station. Everything has to be perfect. We can fool around and have fun. It actually is better that way. All right, where were we? David Bora, Jordan A.J. McCone, let's go. Minister Mitch, hoy hoy. Let's see, Bill is in the house. Hey, Bill Bancroft. DFKTX and Kozeps, Abronx Kicks, Hendrix 6, and I think that's it for everybody's in the chat. Let's bring it in. Welcome, everybody. It's me, John Selway, here for 343 TV. It's Techno Saturdays, brought to you by 343 Labs. You know what we do. We're a music production school based in New York City and Berlin and online. Doing all sorts of music production classes. Synthesis and sound design is what I do most of the time. There's a Logic class starting today with one of our newer instructors, Takuma. You might have seen some of the videos. He's been killing it with some new content for us here on the YouTube channel and helping out with that stuff, and he's doing a great job. So yeah, he's hanging out somewhere in one of the classrooms here, waiting for his students to show up. And yeah, as always, the weekends are busy here at 343 Labs. We've been doing more events. We've got classes happening. And of course, we've got days like today. And actually, it's a special day because this is the first time I've had a guest in person in the studio. Let's give a welcome to our good friend here, Kevin McHugh, known as Ambivalent, right? That's your artist name?
That's the main one I use, yeah.
Wait,
hey, John.
What's the other one?
LA4A.
Oh, that's right.
One? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I knew that. I haven't been, I don't know, paying attention to my tracks lately, and all the artist information and labels go out of my mind now that I'm not DJing actively anymore.
Oh, don't worry. I haven't put anything out under that alias in a while. So
okay. So
got some stuff coming soon.
That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, Kevin's hanging out with me here. Usually I have my guests remotely, which has been amazing. You know, that all started when we were all on lockdown, and we started streaming when everything switched to online, and that's been kind of the way to do it. I've been able to have guests from all over the place, even local guests I was having remotely. Just it's somehow easier, I think, for some people in terms of scheduling, but technically it can be complicated to do remote stuff. And we thought, I was talking to Kevin about doing a show with me, and we were like, hey, just come to the studio. Let's do it together. Let's do it in person.
It was an easy hop on the subway to just come right over, and it felt like a great way to kind of see how you do all this stuff. I love watching and seeing all this stuff, but it's really interesting to see on the other side of the camera how it all gets put together.
Yeah, you know, we got the green screen here, and yeah, whoa, we could be anywhere. I should change up the back. We should be like in a spaceship or something like that.
That'd be cool.
Another day. I also was thinking about doing using one of the classrooms. We've got like nice bright sunlight in here. We got big windows, but here we are under the artificial lights in front of the green screen because that's what's working for us. So as you know, today we're doing a feedback session. A bunch of you have submitted tracks. We went through almost all of them. There's a couple of ones that came in at the last minute that I didn't get a chance to check out yet. So we'll see what we can get through. We should probably just start to dive right in. But anyway, the order of the day is we're going to start listening to the tracks that were submitted, and we're going to give you our feedback and sort of talk about each track. We'll get through as many as we can, and then we're going to wrap things up after we go through a few of them, depending on how time goes. You know, we'll see how many we can get through. If we didn't get to you today, don't worry. I'm going to pop into our Discord channel where you guys submitted everything and give you some feedback there, right? So even if we don't do it live, you're still going to get some a response. All right. So just so you all know that. Anyway, so we're going to get through what we can. And then Kevin, in addition to being a really great producer, techno artist who's been around for ages and knows his stuff, is also an audio engineer, is a mastering engineer. Kevin, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing with your mastering?
So about 5 years ago, I started when I moved from Berlin back to New York City, which was my home for a long time before I lived in Berlin. When I moved back here, I set up Valence Studios, and I do mixing, mastering, and audio post-production there. And one of the main things that I do there is I do mastering for a lot of electronic artists, house music, techno music, hip hop, drum and bass, all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, that's really sort of that's how I mainly spend my time, is mastering people's tracks. I've worked with a ton of great artists, some that folks would know very well, and some artists who I think deserve a lot of extra attention. And it's been great to be able to get new artists coming in and hear what they're doing and help them put their best foot forward. So, yeah, and I think that a lot of the stuff that goes into mixing and mastering sometimes gets too mystified. It gets too treated as some like special dark art when in fact it's really a lot of basic principles. And so I also do writing and tutorials for Isotope and for Native Instruments and a couple other music software companies to try to share stuff that I've learned, because when I was trying to learn this music, there wasn't a 343 Labs. And so it really helped me a lot to get information from other people who shared with me. So I try to share that information as well.
No, I totally feel that. I mean, and that's how I got into teaching. Well, other than the fact that my family is a musical family and both my parents are music teachers, but I spent my young life avoiding that at all costs. But throughout my career, as a musician, as a producer, as a DJ, I always really ended up enjoying collaborating and sharing what I knew. And that it fit, that kind of attitude, and how I felt about doing that just sort of naturally led into being a music production instructor. So yeah, I totally get that.
I also think, I mean, as somebody who was a John Selway fan before I knew John Selway, I think one of the marks of your career is your collaborations and how many amazing people you've worked with and brought into your musical world and taught them things and seen them go and take their work, out into the world as well. So I think that's one of your strong suits, and that's why I'm so excited to be here, because I think there's a whole list of people in the chat who are watching and listening and learning, and
awesome.
There's a lot of people who've learned already from you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And yeah, I loved collaborating, and I've been lucky to work on with some really great people and have some success with that. Speaking of the chat, thanks Max Wild. He just let everybody know that it was my birthday yesterday.
I didn't know. I'm embarrassed. We were texting yesterday and I didn't know it at all. So happy birthday, John.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm not the kind of person that's like, hey, it's my birthday, everybody, wish me a happy birthday. Like, if you know, and I'll say thank you, and I appreciate that. So yeah, no crazy parties for me. Just, had a nice dinner with my family and a couple of friends last night. Anyway, thanks everybody out there in the chat for wishing me a happy birthday. Cool. I'm embarrassed now.
Now it's Techno Saturdays. That's the best way to celebrate.
Exactly.
In a dark room. I think being, you were saying like maybe we should have had the sunlight, but actually it's Techno Saturdays.
It's techno.
And we should be in a dark room with no windows. That's the way to really make it techno.
Let me turn the lights off. No, no, it's not that kind of dark room. All right. They're still coming in here with the crazy happy birthday messages, and Max Wild's like, we're going to get wasted. All right. Yeah, Max is going to take us out. We have a little 343/birthday get together for me tomorrow here in New York. Looking forward to that, Max. Thanks a lot. And yeah, Max is here. He's usually in Berlin, but he is here in New York, and we're making things happen while he's here. So thanks, Max. We should get into some music, right? Like we've been talking.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's get into some of this stuff. All right. So I've got a bunch of, most of the submissions were SoundCloud links. And I opened up a bunch of the ones that I remembered that we listened to yesterday. Hopefully I didn't forget anybody. But we are starting out with Iakios or
Iakios?
Iakios.
Yeah.
Sounds Greek, maybe?
Maybe.
2CB and Me. Y'all let us know if the volume is all right.
Cool little filter thing going on here. Little filter intro.
Gets right into it. Yeah, I like how it started.
Nice thick kick there. Sounds really full. I think there's a nice balance here of center channel percussion and bass, and then some nice stereo field work there, which
yeah, no,
good.
that's important. Like, I mean, right away, you know, with this kind of music, you got to have that, like, instantly feel the groove, right?
Yeah.
I feel like for this kind of hypnotic techno, from beat one, you got to get that vibe. And that vibe is there, and it's sneaking up on us. It's evolving. Oops.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, that was a user error. Apologies.
That's a DJ foul right there.
I know, at the party, just stopped dancing.
The arrangement's coming along well on this. It sounds like it's really well paced out. Another nice thing I like about this is the hi-hats are placed really nicely. They're not
and they're really
too far up
smooth
front.
too.
Yeah, they're not really raw and too jacked up. They're just there to keep the groove going. It's great.
And you know, there's techno out there that's similar, but there's some unique character to this. There's something about the combination of sounds that doesn't sound cookie cutter, that's a big thing, because you're putting music out into a sea of sameness. There's so many techno tracks out there that are similar to each other, and any little thing you can do to stand apart but still be effective, that's really good that you're getting there.
Yeah, I think there's always, whenever you're making stuff for DJs to play, there's this balance between you want it to fit, but you also want it to stand out. And that's a really fine line to make, and this is doing that well. It's got that nice sequenced synth that is opening and closing, but still feels like it just keeps looping, keeps things hypnotic and steady.
All right, I'm going to jump in a little bit. I mean, I think we're probably going to get mostly more of the same in terms of arrangement in this section. It's going to grow again. Let's hear how he works it out in our break. It's like the ride cymbal is kind of like a whooshy thing. It's like whoosh.
Yeah.
We have to let it play.
The suspense is here.
Right.
Now we got to see how the suspense resolves.
How's he going to break that tension?
Oh.
That was unexpected.
That's nice.
My head's turning sideways.
Little pitch modulation.
Is that ring mod?
Could be.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Did not that quick when the kick, it just slid right in there. It wasn't like bang. But I think that's good for this kind of music. It doesn't, not every track has to hit you over the head with a huge drop.
Yeah, you don't need a big roar.
Cool. All right, I think we've heard enough.
Yeah.
Before we move along, let's just talk a little bit. And this is how we do it. First, we butter you up. We say nice things, and then we let you have it. So now, let's talk a little bit about a couple of elements that, you know, could stand to be worked on a little more. What do you think?
Yeah. I think there's one thing that I noticed about the arrangement, which is that with these steady hypnotic tracks, you've got a really nice flow. It all works together really well. When you get to this place where there's that breakdown, you might want to think about how long you want that breakdown to be. Because when you pull everything out, yes, you're building suspense and tension, and this track did that very well. But you may want to ask yourself about what is the intention of this track. Is this track meant to be a big suspenseful, hands in the air, combust, like build tension and then release, or is it a steady flow? Because as I'm listening to the first 4 or 5 minutes of this track, it feels like, okay, this is nicely building a kind of hypnotic vibe that just rides like a wave. Do we need to pull that out? Maybe not. Or if we pull that out, does it maybe only get dropped in and out at short moments?
Right. So I kind of agree with you. And like, if you are going to do a long break like this, it really has to work. And it does. Not that it isn't working. Let's just listen to it again real quick. I'm going to jump into the part where remember I started turning my head and it started kind of doing that detuned thing, which I really liked actually. Whatever it is, if it's ring mod that's adding some overtones that are inharmonic or something. But this was like my favorite part of the break. There's a flanger and that dung dung dung.
Oh yeah,
and
the sub bass comes in. Yeah.
And then here it's twisting. I love it. Not that I think you need to do a crazy huge rise. But I think to maintain, rather, it's a taste thing too. But I would have liked it if it stayed bright and weird there instead of dropped back down, right? And that would have maintained the flow. I'm not saying make it a big heavy drop. I like how it didn't hit that hard. I liked how it kind of snuck in. But I wanted to keep hearing that more bright, detuned version of the lead sound, keep going, and rather than suddenly stop, but sort of keep morphing slowly into something else. And that would have maintained the vibe that you're talking about that's sort of more continuous.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of talking about how you deploy all the different pieces. Hey, what's up, non-compliant? Lisa's in the house. One of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about arrangements is that it's sort of like a poker game where you have maybe 5 cards in your hand. You know that those are each pieces that you can play in the game.
Yeah.
And arrangement is about how you cleverly deploy the pieces that you have and use them to your advantage. And one of the things about that arrangement that I noticed was that it gave away one of its best cards too early.
Okay.
The first 32 bars of your track, no one's going to hear because the DJ is going to be mixing that with something else.
So you could take longer to get to the cool stuff.
If you've got cool ideas, stash them later.
Cool. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
It's hard. I want to get into so much detail for each track, but we have to keep ourselves going with a good pace so we get through as many of your tracks as we can. All right, so now we got Silver Knobs, HMDT, Event Horizon. Clean. Yeah.
Love that sequenced melody. Fits perfectly with a lot of the stuff I'm listening to these days. Hypnotic and spacey, little bit of creepy tension to it, but not like spooky, just otherworldly. Love that.
Yeah, and there's a classic vibe to this. This could be from any decade of techno almost. So go to the 90s pretty much, but still modern and clean sounding.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, Silver Knobs HMDT stands for Handmade Detroit Techno. Did I get that right? And predominantly working with hardware, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting hi-hat work here.
You're talking about the syncopated ones?
Yeah.
So yeah, Silver Knobs is confirming in the chat, hardware.
Very
and right
cool.
there, getting your mix balanced and really clean and polished and modern sounding without the help of mixing in a box and every fancy plugin, right? It's a little more of a challenge, actually.
Yeah.
So, doing well in that regard for sure. It feels like sounds are changing that aren't changing. For a second, I thought the bass notes were getting louder. I don't know. Did you turn them up? I don't know. It seemed like the tricked me.
I think that's one of the nice things when people use hardware.
Right, things float.
There's little different. Those little differences make what would otherwise just be a loop feel like it's slightly evolving. It makes it listenable in longer periods. Got that classic 909 style ride on there. I don't know if that doesn't sound like a 909 exactly, but it's
no, it's a tuned up. I think it sounds like a tuned up 909 ride. I mean, that's perennial. Like, I feel like almost, I mean, every drum in the 909 is so distinctive, but like for techno, the ride cymbal's almost more important than the open hi-hat in terms of how often people use the ride as an arrangement, energy building technique. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm sure you've done it.
It's like power chords in heavy metal.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
just part of the. It's just part of the genre.
This is great. It's like minimal, hypnotic, mental, a little trippy. This has definitely got the hypnotic groove going. There's no big build-up and breakdown in this track. It's all kind of waves of sounds coming in and out.
Yep.
Does the kick drum ever drop out? I mean, there's definitely techno tracks where the kick drum never stops. Let the DJ do it, right? Just cut the bass out.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in a little bit. Oh, a new element towards the end. That is definitely like a 90s minimal thing to like go through a whole track and then like fade in a new sound at the very end. Like Jeff Mills did that, Rob Hood did that. It would be like 2 tracks in one where they're just jamming on their synths.
It's definitely something that you got to be careful about sometimes because you can really throw a DJ off if they're not expecting something to come in at that part in the arrangement.
Now, all right, let's move into let's pause. I think we've heard most of it. This is a good track. All right, he knows what he's doing. I've heard some of his other stuff. He's been posting a lot in the Discord channel. Thank you. He's making some cool electro stuff too, I think, if I get it right. Anyway, if I'm not mixing people up, sorry. But all right, so you've heard all the good stuff. Now let's think about a couple of constructive, critical ideas we can share with you.
Can I share one?
Yeah.
So one thought I had, I really like, we were talking about how the hardware element gives these very subtle changes, and it's a hypnotic track that yields well to minor changes, evolving, and sort of giving a static feel while also giving a little bit of doubt, like, wait, did something just change or did I hear something differently? I would say lean into that a little bit because the hi-hat pattern to me, as interesting as it was with the stereo panning and the syncopation, I think you could lean into some variations over time. They don't have to be super overt or super obvious, but a few variations at different points in the arrangement will keep it feeling fresh and keep it feeling like it's evolving.
Got it. And just to be clear, we're not talking about the 8th note, not closed 909. We're talking about the more kind of noisy percussion, hi-hat-like percussion that's in between, like the syncopated ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be any, right?
Or both.
Anything in that top end. When you can play with that top end, it gives you freedom to stay static in other places. And then when you want to shift in those other places, you can stay static. Again, I use this playing cards metaphor a lot. When you can shift one thing around, it gives you space to keep something else in place and keep people always listening.
Cool. I would say I agree with that. The part at the end where the new synth came in is a cool idea. I didn't love how it fit in this case. Like, it's okay. I don't know that I would want it to be something even more different and surprising somehow that contrasts even more.
It doesn't add something to the track that wasn't already there.
Yeah, like the vibe is...
This is great right there, yeah.
This part, right? That variation on the main synth, right? Maybe you could have just done that again here. I would say simplify it. But so now here's the thing: you're not working in the box. This isn't like an Ableton Live project you can load up and just fix it. You probably jam this out live, and it is what it is. So that's another thing we have to take into consideration. Sometimes this is what you did.
True.
I don't know what your hardware setup is, like whether it would be easy to recreate this again or to edit or whatever. But anyway, and it's just our opinion, right? So if you like it, you like it. Anyway, no matter what, really cool track. Good work from Silver Knobs. And let's move on to the next one, why do these tabs keep doing this to me? They keep making me reload them. All right, so here we have buoys, SL Tech version. All right, let me make sure I close the tabs that we're done with, so we don't go back to them accidentally. Right away, jumps right out at you. That's tweaky. It's like
super
mental,
trippy.
Yeah. That strong, bright main lead, but then there's just that little one note that's bleeping in every now and then.
Yeah.
Sneaking in there.
A few people in the chat are calling out some references to Sleep Archive.
I hear
hear
that.
that. Yeah.
I like the groove of that. Simple. That's nice.
It's a new idea. Like a kind of sine wave Rhodes piano sort of sequence.
And a little more harmonically typical, and not, you know what I mean? Like the beginning is like, whoa, this one sounds smoother and easygoing. Two very different vibes already.
Yeah.
And both are good.
There's a lot of groove in all of these ideas. There's a lot of ideas in here.
Right, jumping ahead a little bit. Let's hear where it goes. And then back to the whoa. Okay, wait. How does that transition from very minimal in outer space to sudden?
Some very sudden jumps. All great pieces.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like all of the individual parts in here.
Yeah.
I think we know where we're going with our next comments.
Yes.
Cool. So this is really interesting, all right? It's really jumps right out at you. Cool sounds, cool ideas, cool patterns and everything. But yeah, Kevin, what would you say about what can be worked on?
I think I want to go back to my thing about, deploying your cards and playing them at the right moments. That's the real trick of arranging. Having a great idea is one thing. Having a great idea that makes sense over time and evolves in ways that keep people listening, that is the key.
Sure.
And so, actually, a few folks in the chat are saying non-compliant is mentioning like putting the mellow bit earlier and then letting the really freaky, trippy stuff come later. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you've got this big space at the middle where the energy reduces, and that may be not the time in a track where you want to reduce so heavily. Sometimes it's good to think of your arrangement as sort of like a diamond. You want to start down, bring up, and bring back down, or you can do it the other way, right? Start big, go down, and bring back up. This one, because there were so many different ideas deployed at different times, I feel like two things happen. One, you don't get to make a meal of the really good ideas. Those good ideas could make a whole track out of them.
Right.
And number two, you don't get to hear enough of them. And number two, they end up stepping on each other. They cut each other off in these sudden ways, whereas they could evolve over a 4 to 6 minute period and be plenty to make something out of.
Sure. I'm thinking along the lines of the same thing, that like the energy level is it starts out high and then it goes low for a while and then it ends high. And that can work, but it's probably harder to pull off. I also want to point out that the mix levels of this determine a lot of what the energy is.
Yeah.
The drums are in the background. Like the way this is mixed is a little bit more like it's more chill, right? And maybe that's what you want. You want a soft percussion in the background. the balance of the drums is better in this part, right? That makes sense to me. Where you got that little monotonous blip on top, and it's not too loud compared to the kick, and that is kind of nice, right? This balance is great.
This is a great track. Yeah.
If that main synth is so loud, if it was mixed lower like those other sounds, and also someone earlier mentioned there's some resonances that need to be tamed. I mean, okay, you could EQ, you could use some fancy kind of multi-band, or you could use something like Soothe or whatever. To bring those peaks down, but what in the mastering stage, but what really needs to happen, I think, in the overall mix, if it had been balanced more evenly, it would have been more effective as is. Like, you might not even have to change the arrangement that much. It's just that beginning sound is so loud.
And it comes in at full force.
Sure.
There's no introduction of the idea. It's just full force in. I think, especially also when you're working with really bright and harmonically rich content like that synth, that's really tricky to balance in a mix without getting out of control. There's a lot that you have to tame, and there's a lot that you have to think about in terms of EQ and levels, so that not just in terms of the creative sense of like, what do you want to have forward or behind, because there were some interesting ideas in terms of drums being tucked back. You can make a track where the drums are not full force and up front, but over the frequency spectrum, you can't have that much bright information.
Yeah, it sounds so loud.
Without really kind of grabbing somebody's ears the wrong way. You want to kind of intrigue them and seduce them.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So anyway.
But really interesting ideas.
Cool ideas, and overall, I think we like it.
Yeah. All
right, let's move along next. I'm going to have to reload all of these tabs. It's really annoying. Here we have Garrett with... Eurydice Descends. I'm like, do I remember how to pronounce that from like school? Okay. All right, another style of techno right here.
Okay, so Ben Colts, it looks like, is Garrett.
Awesome. At first, I wasn't sure where the downbeat was, but we got it now. Like the kick now, it sorted itself out. Definitely dance floor energy here.
Dark.
Yeah, dark. Those sort of waves of the hi-hats fading up and down.
It's a very muscular track.
Totally.
Really nice drum programming.
Yeah, it has that, Itze's pointing out, the broken beat feel. It has the steady kick, but the other kicks, or the low toms or whatever they are that are distorted, are louder, so they're making it feel more syncopated than just boom, boom, you know?
This track also does a really good job of doing just like breaks at the 16 bar places, you know, to keep the arrangement moving along nicely.
I'm going to turn it down a little bit so they can hear us talk. Getting bright.
A lot of big whooshy stuff. This is going to build a lot of suspense on a dance floor for sure.
I hear chords sneaking in. There's a little harmony in there.
Some sunshine in the darkness.
Like, it's brutal, but I'm kind of happy about it.
This is paced nicely.
Yeah.
Luminous Cloud is asking a question about me. I'll answer that in a little bit, but the answer is no, and I'll explain that later.
Uh-oh.
There's another Kevin McHugh.
Aha!
Okay, some more ideas here, some new elements. Not so much chordy, but more suspense.
It's definitely an evolution, right? This track's taking us on a journey.
Yeah.
But the underlying groove's staying the same, right? So that the energy is still there.
Sonically very... Okay, here's another thing. There's a sort of vocal sort of pad.
It was almost like like a choral kind of ooh.
Those distorted toms feel
I'm
really...
trying to think of another artist that makes like heavy techno with really nice... There's a bunch of them, but like... It's not exactly like Inigo Kennedy, but you know what I mean, right?
That's a good comparison,
or maybe
actually.
Oliver Ho.
I think the Inigo Kennedy definitely,
Yeah.
I hear that. Also a little bit like Headless Horseman in a way.
Sure.
Has a little bit of that vibe.
Our friend.
Yes.
Cinematic with heavy
Cinematic
beats.
is good.
Yeah,
That's a great description, yeah.
Here are the chords again.
Another musical idea.
And it's funny, I would probably need to move forward a little bit, but I haven't wanted to skip forward. It's moving along quickly.
Yes, good point.
And it's already, though, look, it's a 6-minute track, so I'm going to go in a little bit. Another break. Get the ahs again. That's another new thing, which is cool, actually. I like the, whatever that effect is.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that was nice. There's a lot going on in this track. A lot of cool sounds, a lot of cool ideas. So yeah, I like it. Now, what do we need to work on? I'll continue to defer to Kevin to go first.
All right. So I think there's a quote that's credited to, I think, one of the great minimalists, not in techno but in other things, Calvin Klein. He said before you leave and I don't know if this is for him actually truly said by him or someone else, but he said, before I leave the house, I always take one thing off. So when you are arranging techno, listen to what you're doing and see if there's one thing you can remove. There are a lot of great ideas here. There are a lot of great parts. I think if you could make enough out of each of those parts that you could take one or two away and save them for something later. Maybe you decide to take the choral bit or one of the pads. There are percussion elements that come in later. There's so many great things going on here and they're balanced well in the mix. The arrangement is great. Use less, save it for later, because the impact of what you've got will be extended by leaning into it and making the most of it in an arrangement.
I hear that. Now, there may be arguments the other way, like non-compliant saying, I would definitely play this one. I like a lot of movement and little bits and pieces during fill. So it has that.
True.
Now, what I would say to that is, yeah, if you are going to have all these changes, then the hard work is making all of the different ideas really work together musically, even if they're not, like if they were to be playing at the same time, it's logical. So that there's some kind of harmony or some kind of connection between all of the variations, even if it's somehow almost subconscious, like it's different, but it's the same at the same time. So it doesn't feel like, and this is definitely getting into the weeds a little bit. Like, how do I do that? We don't have time to even talk about that, but like the chords in the beginning are low and far away.
Yeah.
Right? I liked that better than when they were up high.
Okay.
And I know it's just the same thing up an octave, but like probably if you had so much else going on that when you brought the chords back with the new elements that you had, it might work a little bit more uniformly because it's recalling what you did before. So it's going to connect that later section with the first section. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Two more small things and then we can move on. One, shout out to Jessica Greer in the comments correcting me that it was Coco Chanel who said the quote that I used. So there you go, another fashion icon. So thank you, Jessica. But one other thing I wanted to mention about when we're talking about the arrangement here, I also want to talk about the mix. The mix is very, very good. There's one small thing that I would change about this, that the kick should be a little bit further forward than the toms.
Okay.
The toms have a lot of space. We love how burly, somebody said, and how muscular that sounds in the mix. But your kick is like the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Nothing should be higher than that. I
agree with you, but also I disagree with you at the same time because what if it's supposed to be not 4 on the floor? What if it's supposed to be more about the syncopated rhythm and having it have that more broken beat feel?
That can definitely be the case, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, I was talking specifically about techno, but
Yeah.
I think in straight ahead techno, because there can also be broken beat techno.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I think that when you always want to have the thing that is defining the rhythm, defining the pace.
Yeah.
You want that to be furthest forward so that it keeps people from having the problem like you had at the beginning, which was you
Where's
couldn't
the beat?
figure out where the anchor of the
think,
rhythm is.
Think of it. Would someone think of the poor DJ, please? One suggestion I would have is it's possible to define that kick drum without turning it up too loud. You could use things like transient shaping. Yes. You could have it pop a little bit more without having the lower boom of it take over the nice bass tones that are coming out of the other sounds.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the kick, the sound of the kick could also be something to like just a little more punchy. Probably would have made Kevin happy. Let's move on. We have got
also as a mastering engineer, I really appreciate when people don't bury things on top of each other. So,
I agree. Yeah, good separation.
Yeah.
But thanks, Ben Colts. Good work. Here we have Lucas Neudling. Did I get it right? That Neudling.
Lucas, tell us in the chat if you're watching.
Dream State.
This one says it's unmastered.
That's what we asked for. You understood the assignment.
I like the nice balance between the kick and the sub bass there. It feels like it's propulsive and groovy still.
Well, and I like this kind of bass it's low and filtered, but not too deep. You know it's going to translate. Like, it doesn't matter if you've got the deepest subs in the world, the room's still going to feel this.
Yeah.
Like if even with a high pass on the system, you're still going to get that woo in there because it's got the overtones in it.
Yeah.
Nice little intricate things with the percussion and ear candy in the background and that intro and getting right into the. I mean, all you got to do is just drop a little 16-note hi-hat in there.
But the arrangement is nice. It's layering and developing things very nicely as it goes.
Totally.
So you keep listening and wait for the next thing.
And this is another nice clean mix.
Everything is tuned well to each other too.
Yeah.
Everything sounds like it's in key nicely. Nice percussion.
There's like a little bit of a tom sound in there.
Yep.
But it's like it's tuned to a harmony with the root of the bass. And it's one of those things that you hear a lot in techno where like, is that a chord stab? Is that a drum? It could be both, right? It's got harmonics in it. And there's a chord stab and a tom tuned together nicely.
Yep. Hi-hats are sitting nicely. They're not too far forward, but it keeps the energy going. I also like how there are those reverby sound design moments that sit in the back of the mix that just give a little bit of interest and texture, but they don't sit too far up front.
It's subtle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's getting trancy. I hear some gated pads in the background. Kick fill. Nice little kick fill.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Keeps the arrangement moving along.
Totally.
Nice.
Very smooth.
Oh.
Chord progression.
There we go.
Transpose something. But like it not in a way that interrupts the momentum. It's sort of like, oh, nice change. And then back. Yeah. Good move.
Taking the kick and bass out.
Do I hear birds? There's some little effects that sound like.
I really like how that moment was handled. The reduce, pull it back, and then push it back forward.
And really this is a good example of like it wasn't a big build up and drop, but it had enough contrast and it didn't lose its momentum.
Yeah,
that was good. But to get those transitions like that slick takes refinement. Like,
yeah,
I feel like you either have to practice it, like if you're a live hardware guy, you have to practice the moves, or you have to spend time making the perfect automation curves in your DAW to get those just right. And it's somehow easier to do when it's a human hand, because you get the right sort of throw on it, you know, like a DJ bringing things in and out, tweaking parameters.
It's tough to make it feel natural. It can feel really forced if you don't handle it properly, but this handles it really well.
Cool. Let's jump in a little bit. Another little example of transitioning. This is just into the end.
Yeah.
A nice flanger thrown at the end. I don't think there wasn't the flanger the first time.
Maybe that's what you were hearing that you thought were the birds.
No.
It almost sounds like scratching.
I thought I heard the birds like in the middle. There. Isn't that a sample of something that's like filtered space birds or something? Or maybe it's a synth through reverb and you've tricked me. All right. This track is good, right? This
is definitely...
Yeah.
So it's Lucas Noodling.
Noidling.
He said in the chat
chat
earlier, he said nude with the umlaut. Nude.
Got it. Nude.
Noodling.
All right, we got it.
Okay, so it's I have to go back to just congratulating somebody, this artist, on doing really smart things with the arrangement. Quick little dropouts in between the larger sections of the arrangement, so that you always stay with a little bit of, you're always paying attention because something's about to change, but the track still feels steady.
Yeah, no, it does. It maintains the energy, and like even though this isn't like banging hard, right?
Right.
It's not getting bright and in your face. It's smooth and hypnotic and musical. It's like it's not trance, but it's a little trancey in the techno kind of vibe. I like that. You know, I've done that before. You know, I do those things. So yeah, it totally has that. And I'm just noticing Lucas is saying that at the end there was a feedback loop.
Oh.
And it was doing the weird like pitch up and down stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, happy accident. Techno definitely needs that.
Yeah.
Like that's how you find your unique sound, is by like accidentally doing something crazy with your synth and your effects. And you're like, how did that happen? I don't know. Just keep going with it.
The happy accident.
Totally. Or resample it or whatever you do. So, okay. Do we have constructive criticism here? I mean, this is definitely like a ready to release track, right?
Yes.
So what could be improved, if anything?
I'm not sure that I am in a place where I can say that this really needs anything. I mean, honestly, I would sit here, I could sit here and maybe think of things that
We'd have to
I might
think
do
really
differently.
hard,
But we would have to look really hard. I think there might be a few things. There's always, you can always optimize the mix a little bit by slicing here, a few things that you can make a little bit more space for.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, everything is where it needs to be in the mix. Everything moves along in the proper order and in a way that keeps me interested in listening. I can hear this being played by a lot of DJs.
Sure.
And I can imagine a lot of labels being interested in music like this, especially given how well executed it is.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot that I would say needs to get done.
And yeah, this has happened before on when we did feedback, like with Lag, there were a couple of tracks where we were just like vibing on them right away, and we were like, I don't know what to say to you, and what I thought to say, and I'll say again, is this track is at the point where like you need the real world shakedown. Like, does this track work on the dance floor? Do people respond to it? Because we could sit here in our chairs in the studio with the nice monitors and go, oh, this is great, but then what if there's something that doesn't translate? And whether that's a mix thing, if it's a mixer, like maybe there's something that a mastering engineer can help kind of balance out that sounds weird, like when it's playing on a big system, that kind of thing. Or is it does this work in a DJ set on the dance floor in a big room? Do people like it, right? You won't know that until it's out in the world.
Right.
So, and if you're lucky to have, like if you are a working DJ or performer and you're going to parties and testing your tracks out, great. And if you're not, maybe you're lucky to have a friend who is.
Exactly.
And you this is where the sharing and getting the music into the hands of your community and getting it played and then getting a reaction. And then that's where you learn. What could I have done better? Oh, this sounds amazing and people like it, but it didn't capture the energy of the room at the right, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, now it's like trial by fire.
Yeah. And I also think, the one thing, if I could think of one thing that I would suggest to watch out for, not something that I think you've got to attend to before anything else happens. But I noticed that the bass, the sub bass that was not the kick, was higher up in the like 60, 70 hertz range, which is great. I actually wish more people would utilize that because everybody wants their sub
full on sub, right?
In the like 40s, 50s at the same place as the kick. Utilizing that space just above the fundamental of the kick is always a really great idea, but it's a thing to watch out for on certain systems because certain systems have a bump there and you can find that there's a lot of resonance. So to John's point, great
that's how
thing
you would
to
know.
do and test. You got to test that on a place with big subwoofers that have that are balanced differently.
Yeah.
Because your home system or your monitors in your studio or your headphones won't tell you that.
There's I've mentioned this on the stream before. Some of you will know that there's some impulse responses made by Balance Mastering in the UK that are like a Function 1 system in a club, and then a custom kind of bass system, like a heavy dubby kind of drum and bass system in like a big room. And you can run your mix through the convolution reverb with these impulse responses and hear what the sound system sounds like in the room.
Wow.
And right away, you know, my bass is mud. You know what I mean? Like you just know. And it's in your headphones even, which is crazy. So I know I shared a link for that in one of the descriptions of one of the videos. We're going to have to share that again because I made an Ableton Live rack that you can load up and use as reference. So I'll give you that. I'll give Kevin that. And we'll share that again somehow. All right, let's keep moving forward. Who we got next?
Arsène
Martinet. It's quiet and clicky and tickling my ears.
This is very...
Is the volume all the way up?
Yeah. I think we've just got like a very...
It starts quiet.
Yeah.
With a big kick.
Suspenseful intro.
I like that we're kind of more chill now. This is good.
Oh man, this speaks to my minimal art. I love stuff like this.
Sub. Droning deep chord in the background.
Trippy, but... Oh man, this is great. Really delicate.
If you're not wearing headphones, you're hearing very little of what we're hearing right now. There's a lot of resonance in the deep subs. It's definitely in the dub area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't even talk because we're just gonna hear you won't hear the details. I feel like I just got slapped with a very soft glove.
By Burial. It's like Burial is in the chat. Well, this is great. I mean, I love this kind of stuff. Really nice reverb work, nice spatial dimensions to everything, really delicate balance of everything.
I'm going to turn it down a little bit because of those slappy sounds.
Deep techno for the win.
Is this dub techno? Is it techno?
It's definitely, I definitely think it's techno, but it's...
Yeah, it's bass music too. Like the suspenseful chord progression kind of coming in here.
I also love how the rhythms evolve in really minor ways, but keep you paying attention. There's implied notes.
Mm-hmm. Implied notes.
People call them ghost notes sometimes, but yeah. As Miles Davis said, sometimes it's about the notes you don't play.
Absolutely. You got to use the space. I don't even want to like fast forward in this track.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to. We want to get everybody in.
I'm going to turn this on for Techno Sundays and
Yeah, right?
chill. This is, but really, like, great sound work here. Like, really, a lot of restraint, which is really...
It's sizzling. That was nice. It was like thin, sizzly noise, and it was dry, and then it ended in reverb. So that was some... I don't know if that was automation or... This is great. I mean, it's very... Again, we're also in a kind of a cinematic vibe with this, too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, someone's creeping around doing something.
But there's some nice things
On
happening
a dark planet.
in the percussion, like just choices of which kind of percussion to use, little blips of noise as opposed to like a, you know, pre-made tom or something. They're all very particularly made and used in specific places in the rhythm that are really nice.
Right. I hate to interrupt the flow, but I'm just gonna needle drop the rest of this.
Yeah.
Okay, more of that filtery percussion kind of coming up front there.
Yeah.
It's trying to slap me again. I mean, and we're also we're in the kind of, it's techno, it's dub, it's cinematic, it's also like, do people still say IDM? It's like artificial intelligence, like early warp, early Autiker, like less noisy kind of, you know what I mean? It's like pull.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stefan, oh my God. What was Betka, right? Din, remember Din?
Somebody in the comments said, would love to hear this on a large sound system.
T++, yes, exactly. I was thinking about that.
T++, great. Yeah.
Those records are so cool. Yeah, all right. I love that vibe. I'm really glad we got some very deep sounds in here today, too. So you heard us say a lot of good stuff. Now, Kevin, what do we want to do? What do we want to say? What do I want to do?
I want to download this and put it on and listen to it at home.
You want to listen to it in your mastering studio?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really artfully produced and conceived piece of music. I want to go and learn a little bit more about Arsene's music because this is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to have the restraint to say, I'm not going to go big. I'm not going to try to win the game. I'm going to hold back and use just the little bits, but make those bits count. Right. I think what's really interesting, like I was saying a minute ago about the choice of percussion sounds, they sound handmade and perfectly chosen, specifically and deliberately chosen for this track. They're not repurposed from something else. And listen, I'm a big fan. Look, the 909 is a preset machine. The 303 has only one preset. You just, you manipulate that the way you want. But when somebody takes the care to build their own sounds and use them in a way like this, hats off.
Cool. That's good. Well, Arsene is here and has offered to send it to you. Just DM.
I'm going to take Arsene up on that.
Cool.
I'm not sure if there's, I think one thing that I might say that may be worth checking out is the sub continues through the whole, Arsene's telling us that he considers this hypnotic techno, which I definitely would agree with. It has elements of other things that we also love, so it can be multiple things at the same time. I think one thing that I would suggest maybe to listen to is how continuous that sub bass is, and think about pulling that out and pulling it back in, thinking about how long is the decay there. Does the decay of that trail off in certain places? Because you use silence, you use restraint so well here, but the sub is there almost all the time, except for this one little section about a minute and a half in. Right. Think about other places where you could remove that to make more of what you've got.
Got it. So yeah, we've got some really great tracks we've been listening to. We're an hour in about. We have got potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more tracks. I know we're not going to get through 9. Okay. And also discuss mastering with Kevin. We want to do that. So I don't know. Let's do a couple more and see where we're at. Sure. And see if we switch gears. But I just will chime in at the hour mark here. We're doing an hour and a half today since we started early at 12:30. Sorry to those of you who didn't see that and came in late. I appreciate that. I know Simple Sam is a regular, and you missed the first half hour, so sorry about that. But yeah, this is 343 TV. I'm John Selway. This is Techno Saturdays here today with special guest Ambivalent, Kevin McHugh, great techno artist and mastering engineer, and he's obviously he's here sitting with me today in the studio, and we are talking about your submissions for feedback. And we've gotten so far a lot of really great submissions, and as I was just saying, we've only got so much more time. If we don't get to you today, I will definitely come in on the Discord channel and give you some written feedback, and I'll make sure to listen to everybody's stuff, because a lot of you guys are making really great stuff, and I want you to get what we promised, right? So, and I should also remind everybody, if you haven't already, check out what 343 Labs does. We've got all of our links down in the description for classes available in New York City, in Berlin, and online, of course. I'm currently doing a synthesis and sound design course here in person on Tuesday evenings. Nice group of people, and I have an online version of the same happening every Sunday. Probably sometime around late spring, early summer, we'll be starting another round. So keep an eye out for that if you've been thinking about doing it. And find out more information about all our goings on, all of our available courses. You can do private lessons. If you're here in New York, we've been doing in-person events here in the evenings, free events like Ableton User Group, and there's performance opportunities. There's feedback sessions, in-person feedback sessions for all kinds of music, not just techno. So yeah, follow us on social media. We're everywhere. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, and that's how you find out what we do. And if you haven't also subscribed, please do. I've done my due diligence. Let's listen to some more music.
Okay, we're going right back into it.
We went
We're definitely out of the deep and into the hard.
Yeah, we're back into big kick drum territory.
Is this artist's name Itzek? Itzek.
Yeah, okay. Itzek is here.
Oh, there he is in the chat.
That's
okay.
right.
Oh, and shout out to Luminous Cloud, who is also a McHugh, a long lost relative.
Like big hard kick, but also deep atmosphere in the background.
True.
It sounds almost... It's also cinematic, right? Expansive, spatial.
But doing a good job of holding off in those first 32 bars.
Right, making us wait in a good way.
Oh, interesting fill on the kick there.
Right.
Some really interesting rhythmic things happening. I don't know if that's a delay that's making it happen, or if that's
there's some stuff that's like sounds purposefully unquantized, or maybe even polyrhythmic, depending on how you're doing it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure like if you just took all the drums out of this would be really nice ambient.
Oh.
Right? But it's an interesting juxtaposition. I actually often like tracks like that are like very deep and aggressive simultaneously somehow.
Sure.
It doesn't always rock the floor, but I like it anyway. I like listening to it. It's good for setting the tone. Like this is something you might warm up a very hard set with.
Or if you're in a set where you want to reset the energy in the room,
right. Like you've been going ballistic, and you're like, and now you can keep the energy but also chill out at the same time.
Yep.
So definitely utility for tracks like this for DJs, if that's how you're thinking. It's definitely a mysterious vibe.
Also a lot of patience in this arrangement to let something just keep coming as it grows, because we're hearing more as we go.
We'll let it play through to the break and see what happens.
Okay, I think now we're hearing more of where those off.
It's getting more regular.
Rhythms are coming.
It's a more the beat is sort of forming more, it's less floaty now. Certainly good headphone techno. Let's see.
Maybe there's a vocal sample buried under there, like a pitch down vocal.
There's some weird stuff going on in the background.
Spooky.
Okay, let's jump in a little bit. I think we, right, now we're breaking it down.
Actually, I'd like to hear how he makes the transition into that reduced part. Just
right here?
A little further ahead. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So I think we got the vibe. We know what the parts are. We've got the overall, we can see the arrangement right in front of us in that waveform. All right. So a lot to like. What do we want to think about working on?
Okay. I think there's a nice steady flow to the arrangement.
Yeah.
There is an interesting thing that we heard only once or twice in the track, which was this stuttered kick at the sort of transition point into a new phase of the arrangement. I think two things that I want to say about that. Be careful with that when you do it, because you can throw either a DJ in the middle of a mix or a dancer off if that's where you're aiming this as DJs and dance floors. That may not necessarily be your main focus. But also, if you're going to do things like that, maybe think about doing them more often. I know that sounds contradictory that I'm saying be careful, but also do it more often. But if you're going to deploy or if you're going to use techniques like that, think about how often you use them so that you're changing things at those moments. I loved the idea of using that to signal a change in the arrangement where you're going to reduce and pull those big pads out. But you may end up finding that those can be things that you do more often.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that stuttery kick drum thing, that was probably my least favorite thing in the track.
Okay.
But I know what you're trying to do, I think. And I'm not saying don't do it, but maybe work on the subtlety of that rhythm so that it feels more purposeful and sophisticated rather than you suddenly stumbled. It has a bit of a stumbly kind of rhythm to it, and that can work, and you could do a different style of a track where it's kind of more like that the whole time and it's part of the groove. In this case, it comes out of nowhere, and I think you could, somehow come up with a kick drum fill that is surprising, but in a bit more of a pleasant way, right? That doesn't like throw your step off or your mix off. The other one is, it's a nice break in the middle, and it's funny. It's track by track basis. In an earlier track, I thought I wanted that sound to continue when the kick drum came back in. In this one, I think it needed more contrast.
True.
Like I feel like that due to the style of this track and the weight of the kick, it's like an industrial kick with floaty ambient stuff. The floaty ambient stuff is really nice, but also you will apparently gain more energy if you take it away there, and if it's more just, and of course you hear this trick in so many tracks. It's like goes from noise to like just bass with a kick, right? And it almost always works. And it's a bit of a cliche sometimes, but I feel like your track needed more contrast at that moment. Like probably the high, like floaty pad should go away, and the weirder repetitive rhythmic stuff should stay. So it's more like this. It can still have atmosphere, but less bright, more dark and rhythmic. And I think that would make that transition.
There's an irony in techno arranging that you can actually enhance the power of the elements in your track by taking them away.
Mm-hmm.
When you that's why, DJs pull the kick out. When you pull the kick out, next time it comes back, people are just that much more excited to do it. Well, think about that with every element of your track. That pad was really thick and creepy and interesting and moody, and evolved so much. If you suck that out for a minute, especially like where John was talking about, when the kick comes back in, people are going to appreciate it when it's gone.
Right.
Just like your ex. Your ex will appreciate you when you're gone.
Wait, that's a boom.
Yeah.
That's what I need, some sound effects, but I guess I'm not that kind of streamer. I don't have like bells and whistles.
It's not Morning Zoo.
No.
Shock jock.
It's not. So I realized that we still have a whole bunch more, and we've only just done like one track, right? So I'm going to ask Kevin, like, I want Kevin to show you some stuff. I want him to do his thing. And we did pick a track to go over and apply some sort of mastering ideas to. I've got a hard cutoff today of 2. We can't run long. That's why we started early. So I'll ask Kevin, do you want to switch into mastering mode now, and then we'll get back to everybody else online on the Discord, or do we want to do another track and then right? So we fit in one more track, or do we want to go straight into the mastering?
Well, okay. So this next one is by Simon Harpham, but Simon is saying in the track, please skip to the next track.
Oh, okay.
Because
you missed the part about unmastered.
Unmastered track. So maybe at another point we can listen to Simon's track.
Sure. And no, Simon, you're not an idiot. It's easy to miss. There's so much information being thrown at us all the time. Don't feel bad.
And we're gonna listen to we're gonna listen to your track anyway at another time off stream. And John and I can offer some feedback in the Discord.
Cool. Oh, thanks
about
for
the
offering.
track.
Yeah, you're totally not on the hook to do that because it's my channel. But if you want to join, that'd be amazing. Much appreciated. Okay.
If I've got time. No promises. How about that?
Okay. Yeah. Let's not. We won't hold him to it. So, but it would be nice.
Yeah, but I think it would be cool if we can show folks a little bit of what goes into mastering a track, so that when you are preparing your track for mastering, you know a little bit of what to anticipate.
Cool.
And you can learn a little bit also about when you are submitting a demo to a label, how to get it close enough to sounding like a preview of what the mastered version would sound like, so that the labels can get a good idea of that.
Cool.
So the track that we decided that we are going to master is Dream State, right? Who made Dream State again? I don't remember
the name. I kept messing up. Wow, I've already. We have to scroll back into the chat and see who it is again. He knows who it. If he's still on, he knows it.
Tell us in the track or in the chat when.
Yeah, we listened to it a few tracks ago, and I've already totally spaced out.
Oh yeah, this is the one that we
were talking about.
Lucas Noodling, maybe.
No, yeah.
Lucas. This is Lucas's track.
Right.
And I've just set up a few plugins here that will, that are standard. You don't have to use exactly these. You can use anything like it, but just to give you some of the principles of this. One of the things that I often recommend people doing when they're mastering their own stuff, or when they're preparing something to master, is find the quote-unquote loudest part in the track. It doesn't necessarily mean like look at the waveform and which part is biggest, but look at the part where there is the most going on, because that will give you the opportunity to evaluate all the different elements of a track. So let's actually loop this here really quickly, and we're going to. Oh, you know what we didn't do is this track is not warped. We're gonna skip that.
Yeah, we'll just make it longer so we don't hear the skip too much.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oops. We're just gonna listen to this section, and what we're gonna do first, obviously with everything, well, maybe not obviously, we always want to start with EQ. Okay.
Wait, so what kind of plugins are you using? And actually, is this what you usually use?
Neutron, the entire Isotope suite is stuff that I regularly use while mastering.
When you're not using hardware.
When I'm not using hardware, I use hardware, but I use a mix of hardware and software when I'm mastering.
Yeah.
And the first thing on my chain is always a parametric EQ.
Okay.
Because what that allows me to do is target specific frequencies that I find are potentially problematic, and do some more precision shaping before it goes through the analog chain and before it gets compressed. Because what you want to do is, before you make it louder, you want to take the things out that you want to reduce. So what I will often do is take, well, here, let's actually not use this channel. We'll take this channel, for instance, or this band. I will isolate a frequency, solo it, and you can solo frequencies in many, many EQs, but you don't also have to isolate it. You can do the same trick without having that EQ band soloed. But I will turn the Q all the way up, and I will sweep.
You're not boosting.
I'm not boosting yet. You can boost, but because this is isolated, I'll sweep in this. Now, if this EQ didn't allow me to solo, then I would.
So you could hear it.
Boost it so that I could hear that above everything else. But because I'm allowed to solo this one, right? So now I can still hear this, and you can hear how it's sweeping. Hear that sweep right there? So, this gives me this opportunity here to find areas. That sounds like an area that I might want to reduce a little bit, just because it pops out to me. Okay. Now, here's a quick cheat code for you when you're hitting resonances. The isotope options or brands, Neutron and Ozone, will allow you to do this learn feature.
Yep.
And then it is scanning through to find. Oh, see, look, it already messed up some of my settings. But this is a good thing, right? Remember I was talking about how the sub bass was at 60 hertz?
Yeah, look at that.
That's a mastering engineer for you, can tell you which frequency he's hearing and precisely define it. 60 hertz sounded like one here that I thought, okay, maybe that's going to be a thing that we want to target. Sometimes it's actually fundamental frequencies in things that need a little bit of reduction. Now, I wouldn't recommend reducing by 6 dB, but let's listen to a couple other things here. Oh yeah. Hear how that sounds like a little bit of like something's out of tune?
Depends.
It could be good, but it could be something that maybe we reduce a little bit. Now, this cheat code that I gave you about using the learn function, don't rely on that to tell you what to boost and cut.
Yeah, because if you like it,
use your ears, right?
Yeah. So now this is interesting because you're being very specific about individual frequencies. Do you ever think about doing it in wider?
I do.
Okay.
And I do that later
Wider
in the process.
curves. Oh, I see. So you're identifying problem resonance first,
right?
And then doing the overall balance with wider cues.
One of the principles that I always learned in mixing and mastering is cut first, boost later.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that you only cut.
Doesn't that apply with
beginning.
mixing too? Usually.
That's what I said. It's mixing and mastering, because truth be told, mixing and mastering have the same principles. They're the same thing. Okay, so I won't get too into cutting every frequency here or doing all of that, because I want to talk about some of the other tools that we'll use. I'm going to use Soothe here. This is one that a lot of people love. This does a bit of a shortcut for what we were just talking about, which is cutting specific frequencies that stand out a little bit too much. This will show you can see in the waveform here that there are areas where we're getting a lot of reduction because there are some resonances there. I like turning up the sharpness so that it just more precisely reduces that, and the selectivity so it's only getting the stuff that's really necessary. I'll take the depth back a little bit so it's not cutting too aggressively.
Yeah, I find it's as subtle as Soothe is. Yeah, it adds up quick. You really don't want to overdo it. Yeah, because it'll smooth it out, but then you'll be missing a lot of energy too. Yes. So yeah, you want to be careful with. So the depth is really important, and I like that idea of being more selective and sharper, but using less depth, so it's not taking as much away. It's just taking a little bit away more precisely.
Just taking the harshest bits out of there, so that when you boost everything back up, you don't have needles coming in your ear.
Well, and it's not removing it; it's reducing it.
Right.
So it's and again, you also got to follow your ear. If it sounds too smooth and too soft, you went too far.
Right. And so this is why I like the delta feature here, because you can hear what it's taking out in both the positive and the negative. So the delta feature and then the bypass feature. Does it sound like I'm radically changing this track?
No, but it sounds smoother with it on.
Right.
We're telling you that because we know it's hard to hear this over YouTube.
Right. Right. But it just, these are one of the things about mastering and also mixing, because they are the same thing, as we've already asserted. it's about making small incremental 1% changes that are
Yeah.
almost indistinguishable on their own, but together they add up.
Yeah.
And layer by layer, you're adding polish and varnish to something so that then all the flaws disappear and all the good stuff comes forward. So we'll move on from Soothe. Now, okay, a lot of people love the Shadow Hills mastering EQ or mastering compressor. I'm going to skip that because this is not something that a lot of people have. And if you say that you own the hardware, you're a liar unless you're a lottery winner. I've gotten a chance to use one of these in the hardware mode, and it is gorgeous. It's incredible, but I don't have an extra $10,000 stuffed in my sofa. So
you need some bigger accounts first.
Yeah, this is a great compressor, and I was gonna give you guys a preview of this if we had more time, but I'm gonna skip that. So I'm gonna turn that off because a lot more people
I have to go.
Have the ozone. Actually, well, okay, I'm gonna move this in the chain. Well, no, you know what? I'm gonna do a little saturation first. This is the other thing, is when you're mastering and when you're mixing, you can change your mind as you go. You can organize things however you like on a case-by-case basis. This is a multi-band saturation slash excitement plugin. What I like to do with this is I will bring the amount up, I will solo a band, and then I will try different saturation modes. Hear how tube sounds really crunchy and brittle? That may not work here. Oh, tape sounds woofy.
Yeah.
Hear that woofiness?
So we're hearing different harmonic distortion curves, kind of, right? We're hearing different overtones come out on top of that sub.
The triode is, while that's like a triode circuit is like a tube circuit, that tends to often have like a nice warm factor. This warm is nice. Warm is nice on the bass in the ozone suite.
Well, I feel like for this track particularly, we want it to be warm and clean.
Yeah.
We don't want to crunch it up
really
and make it too hard sounding.
Yeah. So, and then sometimes I just figure out how much of that I want in there. You know, you can balance the amount and the amount in the mix so that you've got those two together. It's important also to figure out where you set your bands when you solo. What you want to hear is when you're isolating the low band, you want to imagine, am I hearing this? How would this sound hearing through a wall?
Sure. Yeah.
If you're hearing it through a wall,
like
we're there. If you get up here, that's too much, too high up, right? So you want to get down to where it sounds like you're hearing it through the wall.
Now here's a question for you.
Sure.
There's the sub at the kick drum, and then there's that higher synth bass that's at a higher frequency.
Yeah.
Would you ever separate those? Would you make two low bands?
Two low bands. Well, let's listen in the mid band, because the mid band will tell us a little bit more about what we want to do, right? The mid band, sometimes one of the cheat codes for listening to mid band is how you would hear it through a telephone.
Oh, totally.
Right? So, okay, so to John's point, we're hearing a little bit too much of that bassy part in the mids, so maybe we do need to move this up into the 300s, which is where bass and mid tend to kind of intersect. This is the low mid area where people often have a lot of problems. Let's hear the saturation in that. Tape sounds nice.
Yeah, like
tube sounds nice.
The stuff that sounded too crunchy on the bass might work nicely on the mids.
Yep.
Because it won't break up as much.
Tube and tape both sound good. You have a preference between those two?
I like tape.
I like tape. Tape sounds
more present.
Yeah, it sounds alive. I'm just going to tuck that back just so it's not completely predominant. One thing I just wanted to say about this, about the saturation, the reason we do the resonance reduction in the first stage is so that then when we do saturate, all of the good frequencies are up front and the stuff we want to hide is already tucked back, so that we're saturating the good stuff, because this is now filling out the holes that we cut. So, and now we'll get to the easy bit here. Okay, I just want to point out here, this little empty space here, that's thanks to SoundCloud.
That's SoundCloud, yeah. And I sent a message asking if we could get a WAV file. Apologies if that was a little late. So we just ripped it out of the browser into Ableton, and that's why the super high frequencies are missing.
Yeah.
Right. So we just have to imagine those. But now you're adding them back.
Right.
You're filling in the ultra highs with.
So we've got a very strange cliff at around. Probably it looks like around 16K, something like that. We'll see.
And like doing this, like mastering. This is why you would never master an MP3 or a low bitrate file, because you're just going to create noise and you're going to exaggerate artifacts from the compression, right? So what we're doing now, normally we would never do. So, but that said, we can still follow our ears and do something that sounds okay.
And we can use the basic principles of mastering to get anything sounding better than it was.
Right.
It's not always about, is it perfect? It's about, is it better than it was?
Right.
I like tube here. And so look here, we've got 3 different types of saturation over 3 separate bands. And that's an advantage of plugins, right? I have a very expensive saturating element in my analog chain that I can't do that with. So this is a nice thing.
All right. So we literally have like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I hate to rush you. I realize we should have done a 2-hour today. We should have started at 12.
Well, from here we're just going to do some compression, and I won't talk too much about compression because I have a feeling that
This has been gone over so many times.
Talked about a lot.
Do you use kind of a typical like long attack, short release kind of bus style compression, or does it depend on the material?
It depends on the material, and it depends on where in the chain. I might actually use multiple compressors at different stages and different time constants for those. So for here,
and this is multi-band compression.
This is multi-band. I'm going to treat it as right. Yeah. So in this, we're just going to really quickly dial in.
Looks like you're just concentrating on the peaks.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the tops of things and being really delicate so that, again, similar to like I was with the EQing, I'm not getting too exaggerated on anything.
And this is what, RMS or peak, or what kind of?
Well, that's what we'll save for the limiter.
All right, so it's like an RMS, like a smoother compression that we just did.
Yes.
Okay.
So what we want here is we want this to be grabbing stuff and accentuating the things that are maybe need to be brought forward by taming down the things that's a little bit hot. And we're just grabbing those in different ways across these different bands. Again, I'm rushing through this. If I were really mastering this track, I'd have
take a little longer.
More than a minute or two. On the
we might have to adjust the level so they can hear you talk.
Yeah. So what we'll do here, you can hear the differences here, and what we want to do is bring the threshold down, and we want to keep our ceiling at minus 0.3.
You never go less?
Well, you can go down to -1. It depends on what you're doing this for.
Right.
If you're doing this for a YouTube video, which we really should be actually doing right now,
-1.
The true peak would be -1, and our target LUFS up here would be a little bit
lower.
Yeah, we would want to be less loud.
I'll just say if you're making techno for DJs to play, you don't care about matching LUFS.
Right.
Just make it as loud as you want it.
Yeah, there's a point. There's
within limits, but
there's a thing. You don't want to get up to like -6 because then you really have crushed all of the dynamic energy.
I would say like 9 to 7 is okay.
Yeah, I think there's room in there. If you're cutting it to vinyl, obviously you'd have to be a little bit more careful.
Yeah.
All right. The last thing I want to show you is this is a great tool, and this can tell you where your mix is and also where your master is. Tonal balance control is a way that you can see sort of the guardrails for what's good and what's too little and what's too much here. Here I'm seeing that our really high end is pushed a little hard, and that's because we pushed that saturation a little bit more.
Well, yeah, and you were trying to make up for the lost highs.
Right.
But that ended up probably exaggerating the highs that were there too much.
Right.
Maybe. That's what I'm guessing.
And so now that I've cut the saturator off, look, it's kind of closer into space.
But now the ride symbol came in.
Right, exactly.
This is a moving target. I've mixed with this. I use total balance control for mixing. It's a moving target. You can't go crazy over, it went up a little bit and then it went down a little bit. It's like you just got to look at the average.
If you chase it too much, it'll get away from you.
Yeah.
So, but maybe here I'm going to reduce this by a dB or 2.
Yeah.
No, less than 2 dBs. Somewhere around that area. When you're doing big broadband changes, which is something that I would do, between the compression and the limiting stage, or maybe before the compression stage, the broader band stuff is what you do to balance out the big things here, right? So this is getting me in the zone here. So anyway, that's mastering in a nutshell.
That was fast. And you know what? I mean, I'm just going to stop that because we're going to wrap this up. I got to go meet my son at his science fair at the elementary school, like now. So, but no, even though like you rushed through that, I think but you know what you're doing. It sounded, from what I could tell, in this room, this is not your usual room, it sounded good. And I think also not like crazy different from the original.
Right.
Because
good original.
The existing mix was already good.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's another part that we obviously could talk more about, is like, you know, how to have your mix prepared for what you just did.
Right.
But anyway, thanks for doing that. This has been amazing. Thanks to everybody who submitted. And again, apologies for not getting to everybody live, but we will come back to you in the channel. So keep an eye out for that. I won't do it all at once, but over the next couple of days or so, maybe we'll listen to a few at a time. And yeah, so it was really great having Kevin here as my first in-person guest at the 343 Content Studio here. And that's it for now. Thanks to all of you in the chat, and we will see you, or at least I will see you next time. Adios.